So memories is a topic I haven't really talked about too much, but in this video, we're going to be going over the memory tier list. Finally, a lot of people have been asking, so I worked a bit on the fan Discord tier list for the memories, gave my thoughts on a couple memories that I thought were really good. So today we're going to talk about it. They just updated it, and I think this is perfect timing to just make a video on it, since I did have a lot of people ask me. For the most part, I'm on floor 86 now, halfway done the new floors, but 86 is kind of a hard block unless you just spend a lot of time and get lucky. So I'm going to probably stop there until anniversary. If there's a red Jujutsu unit, I'm definitely going to do 86 then. I just can't be asked to spend that many hours. I have a lot of shit to do. So we're going to go over the full tier list. Now, let's just go over a couple things, mainly off of 80 plus for tower right now, and also sweep. I'm going to give basically just kind of highlight a couple units in between everything. So let's just hop into it. Keep in mind, this tier list, I think right now is outdated. I think the memory tier list here is outdated. Yeah, August 2025. So this is the most updated one. Join the Discord to actually get access to see these tier lists. They're all there. So basically they're split between Jujutsu, Taijutsu, and I think mixed. Let's just kind of talk about some new additions. I mean, non-standards tier 0. You know, you could maybe make the argument that he's like tier 1, especially with this memory now. Pride works for stacking, and that still works well on a little buddy boy called Tinjo, right? Not many other DPS can make use of it. Barely any besides Tinjo and Sukuna. You could maybe argue for Choso, but Tinjo makes very good use of this because he has his 4-turn buffs, his 4-turn buffs, and it works pretty well with him for Pride, so keep that in mind. Now, besides that, the new addition is this memory, and it's so good on so many people. So, I mean, I tried it on Sukuna, not bad if you want to get more ults in, but essentially, that memory is amazing on, let's see, I mean, it works well on Choso, amazing on Yuta, and Domain Gojo are like the 3 top units, but also I've used it on Megumi for sweep. It works pretty well too. So there are a couple different units that can make use of it. Essentially, what is it doing? Well, basically every time you crit, you're going to be getting 200 alt gauge, same like Like-Minded Sisters, and the activation is 75% Jujutsu. We don't really count this because it's only for Cursed Spirits, so barely anyone can make use of it. The Jujutsu stat's a bit low, however, because of the fact of this alt gauge, you get a lot more alts in. And then for tier 1, you know, you could even argue this one tier 0, but essentially, this one is insane. I really like this one. It's giving, if you're blue, 95% Jujutsu, 10 CE just like that every 6 turns, and a permanent 20% crit rate that cannot be nerfed. That is very strong. Whenever it can't be nerfed, same like Fukuoka, very strong, because tower, if it was any type of, like, if it did have a turn limit, it would be nerfed. But because there's no turn limit, it's not nerfed. And then it has the max Jujutsu stats. So very good memory on Yuta's banner. If you don't have this one, definitely run Yuta's banner memory. That's for sure. Now, the honored one actually is picking up a lot of usage. In event, then memory quest. Yes. So why is it picking up usage? Very good Jujutsu. I think let's actually go in game to check out its stats. But essentially, it's the max amount. Yeah, max amount. So very strong there. And if we check here in total, it's going to give 70% if you're low enough, which, you know, we'll talk about who it's good on. It gives a revive, and after you revive, fill alt gauge by 20% and give Jujutsu, which is huge. So overall, you're going to get some very nice stats, but it's mainly that revive. And who is making use of it? Well, right now, this memory is actually making rounds on floor 86. 86 is red Jujutsu debuff floor. And for red Yuta, which I now have A2, it works very well because he can't heal himself, but he heals everyone else for a total of 100% now because he has an extra heal from his buffs. So from his new buffs, the SP buffs, because of that, it helps a lot to have that revive for him. And it's still going to give very good stats. So yeah, overall, it's a very good one, even if it's tier 2, right? Keep in mind, even tier 2 on this has use cases. Now for Taijutsu, sorry. Well, I mean, I think Potts made it up, right? Because Potts was lower, but because Zonji is so good, I think Potts is very, like, it makes sense why they went up. This evasion status, I've had it actually come in clutch sometimes. Max Taijutsu, I find it works very well. Very good rec bit. I didn't know that the Toto and Yuji one had such a high amount of stats, right? If you're below 50%, that's a, what, 110% Taijutsu? Kind of crazy. With a revive status, it's just low Taijutsu here, but this is kind of crazy. I genuinely didn't know. Now, the Toji one, actually, this one is insane. I'm talking about this one. This one in specific, I don't have it, but because it's a 20% permanent taijutsu for red and yellow Toji and the Makis, which makes it very good. Max taijutsu stat and 50% for 2 turns. You can activate it on the ult, which is very good for someone like yellow Toji because you activate it on ult and then the turn after, your dot damage, the damage over time damage from the sting is boosted. But this being permanent is insane. Very good overall, even for red Toji, very nice. But LMS is usually better, but this one does technically do more damage and for an extra turn. So there is that. Now the Mama Fushiguro, right, is okay. I feel like a lot of people glaze it up a little too much because there's one less cooldown turn. Problem is, passive kind of sucks. You could argue tier 1, I just, like, you know, these two have kind of a use. This one's good for units with counter. And then, of course, LMS and Fukuoka have just better passives. That 20% crit rate, like, for example, on 82, that Fukuoka memory is insane. On 82, remember, like I said, for the 20% on the Yuta one, right? This 20%, if I could find it, this 20% is never going to be nerfed. So it's like very good. And then obviously the 200 alt gauge is great. Then the ones in tier 1 I feel like have a bit of an edge. I just don't think it really matters to be 1 turn quicker. Like it's whatever. It is whatever in my opinion. But you guys could have your opinion on that. It's not bad. It's just there are better options. Then for combined, the Megumi dogs, very good Megumi dogs. I think it's on standard now. Yeah, it is. So this one's giving crit damage and damage dealt, and every time you crit, 10% Taijutsu Jujutsu, which means you could get 30% plus 65% damage dealt. Plus this, for non-enemies, it's very good. If a non-enemy gets an SP buff, I think this memory is going to be the best on them because they BF and crit the most. So you're going to have that 30% Taijutsu with the damage dealt, with the crit damage. It's going to be amazing if yellow non-enemy or blue Nanami get a buff, right? So keep that in mind. This one, as always, right? The one where they're sweeping up and cleaning is always good, right? It's always a good one. I was just doing like some runs for sweep because I'm trying to build up a video for doing all DPS sweep, right? Like a 1 hour, maybe longer guide. And yellow Nanami could work pretty well with it because the skill 3 does good damage, right? So it's like having a pretty strong, almost 400% skill 3 as a very old unit without an SP buff. Having access to that could be very good, right? So keep that in mind. Definitely the Naobita one is worth talking about, even if it's not on global. This one actually is really nice for a lot of different units and for a lot of different cases, because if you do 2 attacks in a turn, either through follow-up or counter, you're going to be getting an extra 10 crystal energy, which for yellow Mekamaru, for example, works very well, because then afterward, and Mekamaru has Taijutsu and Jujutsu in his kit for his ult, well, basically after that, you also get some extra damage dealt. And more than that, that 10 CE, Mekamaru is going to get if he counters, just like that. So it is very good. You're going to get this 1 every 2 turns because you need to do 2 attacks. So basically 1 turn he could buff, and then put the counter and the taunt. Next turn he attacks, counters, and then afterwards he gets the 10 CE. So it is very nice. I think I've used it in a couple of showcases, but maybe not. Now, let's continue for the types. I think the best one here, the 3 that I really like, the Sukuna one works very well on Blue Yuta for like high sweep gameplay. I think people can make good use of it. The Saki one, I really, really like. I've used it a couple times before, and I do like it. I think it's a pretty good one. I didn't mean to do that. It's a pretty good one because you get 80% damage dealt, and if you're low enough, 30% Taijutsu Jujutsu, and you get alt gauge. Like, it's good. It's pretty good. I really like the HI one for yellow Mekamaru. I think there are some use cases for this one, if I could find it, because it gives the 90% damage dealt, and then afterwards, break damage if your alt gauge is full for 1 turn. So that break damage, I feel sometimes works very well with Mekamaru. And then, of course, the Honored one works pretty well for Honored one. I've seen it on a couple other units, but 95% Jujutsu and then alt gauge every 5 turns, especially in tower, is quite nice. Other ones I want to highlight is the one where you see Gojo, right? That's the Blue Inumaki banner memory, which means it should come to the standard pool in the next batch, right? This one gives damage dealt for 2 turns, and then it applies this, and when you have this increased own Jujutsu damage received for 2 turns, it makes this active, which then means you have the max Jujutsu stat at max dupe, right? Then you have 60% damage damage dealt for 2 turns, 2 times, which perfect for blue tail. And then afterwards you have this for 2 turns because you're gonna have this for 2 turns, but you have to be low enough. If you're low enough, this memory is very good. If you're not low enough, there's a lot of RNG involved, right? So it kind of sucks, but that's why it's tier 1, that bit of RNG. You might have seen some 10 out of 10 hard sweep runs with it, but that's because it was bugged and this was activated every turn, so that was a big problem. But this, because you could activate it on like your skill 3 for blue Utah, is quite nice if you get the good RNG. Now we go to support, right? So I do want to highlight a couple. So these are just damage ones. Now this Miguel banner mem, which you could get, you might get it. You might actually get it because it's going to be on the JJK0 rerun, which you're going to have 40 pulls on. Gives it 200 ult gauge at the start of the battle or when you swap in. This is good for nuking, but it's losing its value, right? Because of the fact a lot of DPS now are doing damage every turn. Because of that, it's kind of hard to make use of this, right? To stack it, because you're basically able to stack it and get 40%, but you can't do that much anymore. But this ult gauge is still very useful. Then I'm going to actually X that one out. And the other one I want to mention is the I'll follow you everywhere, Mr. Anonymous. I think that's what it's called. I will follow you, Nanami-san. So it gives crit rate, which is good for a lot of different units, mainly red Nanami and yellow Kusakabe, team Nanami. And then it gives, every time you crit, 20% Taijutsu. So you can max that out at 60% with team Nanami and yellow Kusakabe, since they both have pretty good crit rate, especially Kusakabe having his guaranteed crit on ult, same with team Nanami. It works very well. Good to get the extra Taijutsu. And, you know, what you have to keep in mind is, well, guess who's yellow and guess who's red. For yellow, you have access to Zonji with that, right? Zonji with Kusakabe in the future for you guys might be really good. And then with red, you have access to both red Yuji and then also red Toji, which I think he's a bit lower, or is he higher? I have too many units maxed out now. Here he is. So then there's also red Toji, which another 60% is very big. And you could maybe even make the case to put this on Miguel because he has very high crit rate. This is an 80% crit rate, but then he gives himself crit rate buffs here and here, which I might actually start running that on Miguel. Ooh, wait, yeah. For sweep, that might actually be really good. You give him that, he's going to be critting all the time, giving himself Taijutsu, giving other allies Taijutsu. Fuck, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, on Miguel, that might be really good now since Miguel is an actual proper good unit because of his SP buffs. So yeah, I could really like that I will follow you one. The other ones are a bunch of damage, right? This break one, actually, I did use for 85 on Naobito. You could use this one because with Yuta, you actually do want to get... But this is an event limited, so it's probably you won't have it if you're having a new account. But it's a permanent 35% break damage increase, right, for blue units. So it does work pretty well. You know, that's kind of it. I don't really want to discuss it too much more. This one's mono, this one's mono, this one's mono, so that's cool. I do like this one a lot because it actually gives the main unit damage dealt increase. So in some cases, you could have the main one having it like a DPS memory, and then the other ones have it as support, so it's pretty good. Now for defensive, I mean, okay, so obviously the Shoko and the one with the like, you know, fake Junpei scene, those are healing ones. The Megumi one is very good right now, mainly because of sweep, so, and also for some floors and tower, but I count it for sweep also because now with hard sweep, right, the units are ran off color, right? Those two units being, well, the main unit being Red Yaga. Having that memory that gives healing and cursed energy is very strong and lets you survive. This damage reduction with the CE is very good because it gives 10 CE at the start of the battle. But this Kusakabe one, which unfortunately I did not get, why it's really good is because it's something you could activate earlier because it gives 10% healing HP for 3 turns. So essentially you could activate it earlier because, you know, sometimes you wait to be able to heal the full amount. But this one, if you start healing earlier, then every turn you're going to get damaged and you're going to almost be able to make full use of it. And then the cooldown's 8 turns. So technically there's only 5 turns where you're not really healing. So you get to activate it earlier and get it earlier technically. But the main thing is you're able to do this heal. And also, if anyone's below 50%, he has 3-turn taunt with a revive, which means he's gonna, like, whoever has this, usually Red Yaga is gonna be tanking some hits. Red Yaga, who else? I mean, just anyone really, if we're being real. You're able to basically taunt, which sometimes could actually be good for yellow Kusakabe, this memory, depending on the situation. And then afterwards, you're gonna be getting the revive status, which means you're going to be able to tank some hits. And if you tank those hits, take damage, well, guess what? You're going to revive, so it won't really matter anyway. So I do like that one quite a bit, even for sweep. Then here, this is another good free-to-play one, which maybe at some point we're going to get in the story event reruns. This gives some HP. This one's a good damage lower one. And the other ones, I don't really use too much. They're all right. but nothing too crazy. I just really like that Kusakabe one. And for utility, of course, we have this one, like we said, for Domain Gojo. Works very well. This Junpei memory might just be the best memory in the game, or one of the best, right? I think it would rank in top 5 most used ever, because of the fact it's giving so much CE. I think it's dupe 4 for me. Dupe 3, unfortunate. But yeah, it's going to be giving 20 curse energy every 4 turns, which works extremely well, especially on someone like Red Yaga. So this one is fantastic. Besides that, the new one on the Jogo banner is better than Unity. It's better than Unity, because it's going to be giving 25% for 3 turns, which in total, if you add it up, is 75% boost over 3 turns. And then when you compare it to Unity, Unity is giving 35 for 2 turns, which is 70%. And that extra 5%, believe it or not, allows it that with Like-Minded or the new memory for the 200 alt gauge per turn, it's going to make it that Domain Gojo is going to be able to get his ult in 3 turns, which is going to make it perfect to where this memory makes Domain Gojo actually kind of a mini buff, which is quite nice. Obviously, this one's with the Kathy and Maki is just a very good overall one. The one on the bottom, I wish they would rerun map events because of it. Because this is from a map event, and it's such a beautiful memory that I just don't have, because I guess the account wasn't playing that. Every time you crit, you give 15% alt gauge for all allies, which means you could have 30% up with this constantly, and then you have a 4% crit rate buff here. So it is very good with this alt gauge, right? You could run, if you were able to run this on Kusakabe, right? If you had it, would be really good. I do like it. Unfortunately, I don't have it. I think this one should be higher than tier 2, but it's a heal plus alt gauge boost and gives a damage boost also. So there is that. Then there's the top memories. This one is very good. The Ino one is very good. I'm surprised the other ones aren't on there. Yeah, I'm actually surprised, because there's a couple more that I would like to actually reference. That's the other 2 top memories that you're able to run, which I like both of them. First one being this one is very good because of the fact it gives taunt 7 turns twice, right? And then decreases all allies damage dealt. And then you have a damage reduction, so in some cases you could run that one. And then of course this one, which unless I'm blind, it wasn't there. This one's a 2-turn taunt and gives damage reduction whenever you crit, which is actually very nice, right? It is pretty good to give that to the rest of the team. So yeah, but this one I do like a lot. So yeah, I mean, obviously Unity is very good. You have your alt gauge memories, which is now the Jogo banner memory, Unity, and then this one, and then also the Domain Gojo one, which maybe actually I didn't think of it, but it's on standard, right? This one might be added to the standard pool soon. Yeah, that's possible. Sorry, not this. This one might be added to the standard pool soon, and this one is going to be amazing, right? Increase all allies crit chance by 10, permanent, can't be nerfed, gives alt gauge and damage dealt for 2 turns. It's a very good memory, right? Especially when you combine it with other alt gauge memories. So yeah, I mean, this is it. This is the tier list, and that's kind of it. I mean, listen, it's better usually, like, you kind of want to go case by case, but just knowing generally good memories is nice, right? It could make you kind of be on the lookout for certain ones, and maybe also very good for when we get the paid selector for anniversary, you could come back to this video and see which ones you might want to grab, right? So yeah, that's kind of it. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about every single memory, but I think a general understanding of a lot of the good ones is kind of important, and whenever they have new memory tier lists, I'm probably going to make more videos on this if this video does perform well. So yeah, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you think. Is there any other memories that you have questions about? I'll let you know down below my answer to your questions. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.